We have a distinct pleasure today of having with us Mr. Heath Schondelmayer. Mr. Schondelmayer graduated from the University of Georgia, majors in finance, and then went to a good school to get his MBA at CSU. He got his MBA at CSU. He continued further education. He attended the Stonier Graduate School of Banking at Georgetown University. Originally from Augusta, he's moved to Columbus. He's been here for the last 21 years. He's been very active and involved in the local community. He became president of CB&T in January of 2017. But he's been extremely involved in improving our communities ever since he got here. He has been involved in fundraising for the United Way, the Yucatoy Polo Club, the Steeplechase, and the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce, not Congress. Chamber of Commerce. He has been on several board of directors, including the Boys and Girls Club, at which at one point he was president. He also has been on the Development Authority, the Columbus Chamber, and the Columbus Country Club. Interesting because it's a great example of becoming president after you've had almost every bank job you could have. He's progressed. He was worked initially in the branches. He became a correspondent bank he worked in, and he worked in credit and underwriting. And he managed the regional lending area where he helped banks, some of the largest customers in Synovus. And over the last few years, he's been head of private wealth initiative before he became president of Columbus Bank and Trust. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Heath Schondelmayer.
Thank you, Dr. Goldfrank, and thank you all for being here today. As Dr. Goldfrank said, I am a proud graduate of CSU. I spent nights from 2001 to 2003 here on campus. I would work during the day and get my MBA at night. I am totally in awe of CSU and the energy and momentum here. When I was here, they had just gotten accredited. It was just named Turner College of Business, but the facilities that are here in the downtown campus, I get to see the Frank Brown building from my office every day, and again, the energy and the momentum that you guys experience here is amazing. When Dr. Hadley asked me to speak, she wanted me to accomplish a couple of things. One is to tell you a little bit about Synovus, who we are, how we compete in the banking world. We think Synovus has a unique culture, so I'll spend a lot of time talking about our culture and how it's a little bit different from some of the other banks. I brought a colleague with me, Willette Shalishali, if you'll wave. Willette will join me up here after I tell you about Synovus for what I hope is a really interactive Q&A about all things career planning, banking. Willette manages what we call our AB, Accelerated Banker Program, our intern programs for college folks. Willette actually worked with me on the banking side for many years, and now she manages our learning and development. So she deals with recent college graduates. She interviews them, her team, kind of knows what we're looking for in college, recent college graduates that want to get into banking, and so she'll be a great add to the Q&A. I want to formally thank CSU. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Hadley and Dr. Mark Wood had our leaders here, and this building we're sitting in was named after Synovus, the Synovus Center of Commerce and Technology. We absolutely treasure our partnership with CSU. We hire many students here. I was told we've given over $6 million to CSU over the last few years. And, you know, the Aflacs, the Theseses, the Synovuses, the Pratt Whitneys, all the W.C. Bradleys, the larger employers here, we can't make it without CSU. And so this partnership is very, very valuable to us. Thesis is one of the largest credit card processing companies in the world. Or it is the largest credit card processing company in the world. It actually started in the basement at Synovus. We have a unique culture, but one of innovation, and there was a need out there many years ago in the 80s, and some computer programmers and bankers got together and fit a need, and you see Thesis today what it is. So it's an amazing story of innovation. I'm sure some Thesis people have been up here to talk to you all. Before I tell you all about Synovus, and I'll go through who we are, the states that we serve in. But there's a story I wanted to start with, and it's a story that our leaders have stood up and told many times. It speaks to our culture, so I'll go ahead and read it here. In the year 1883, a young man from America died while on a visit to Europe. His middle-aged, grieving parents returned with the body. They were heartbroken. They had loved their son very much. After the funeral, they began to discuss some kind of memorial in his memory. Not a tombstone or ornate grave, but a living memorial, something that would help other young men like their son. After considering many alternatives, they decided that something in the field of education would be most appropriate. It would be the kind of memorial that would go on year after year helping educate young people. That would be the best kind of tribute to their son's memory. They arranged an appointment with Charles Eliot, then president of Harvard University. He received the quiet, ordinary, unpretentious couple in his offices, asking what he could do for them. They told him about the death of their son and apologized for taking up his valuable time. They explained that they wanted to establish a memorial to his memory, something that would help other young men like their son get an education. Eliot looked at the couple with some impatience and a certain suggestion of aristocratic disdain. "Perhaps you have in mind a scholarship," he said crisply. "No," said the woman in her mild manner, belying the quickness and sharpness of her mind. "We are thinking something much more substantial, perhaps a building or so." "I must explain to you," said Eliot, with what seemed a patronizing air, "that what you suggest costs a great deal of money. Buildings are very expensive." Obviously, Eliot did not think that from the appearance they were capable of that kind of donation. There was a pause. Then the lady rose slowly and said, "Mr. Eliot, what does this entire university cost?" Eliot shrugged and muttering stated a figure that amounted to several $1 million. "Oh, we can do better than that," said the lady, who now had seemed to make up her mind about the entire thing. "Come, dear," she mentioned to her husband, "I have an idea." And they left. The following year, President Eliot of Harvard learned that the plain, unpretentious couple had contributed $26 million for the memorial to their son. The memorial was to be named Leland Stanford University. So, to me, that story tells an amazing thing about our culture. Very similar, you know, we talk about the golden rule at Synovus, treat others with respect. We have a people, customer-focused culture. And, you know, this president of Harvard University, he judged these people quickly when they came in. And we talk a lot about treating the most wealthy of customers and the most simple of customers the same with total respect. I did some research on the Stanford family. You know, that $26 million gift in 1884 amounts to what would be, in today's dollars, $634 million. They were entrepreneurs. They were simple people. They set up general stores during the gold mining operation, and they sold picks and shovels and other goods to the gold miners out in California. They risked their entire fortune to help build the Central Pacific Railroad, which connected California to the East Coast. And when you think about Stanford University today, you think, you know, it's the origin of the Silicon Valley. I mean, it's where technology all over the world, the venture capital world, the Silicon Valley. So, you know, this gift made, you know, and we often talk when leaders in our company talk about this story, you know, what could Harvard's amazing, but what could it be if that president that day treated these folks just a little different? So, just wanted to share that story with you, and Synovus. We are the #1 mid-cap bank in the Southeast. We are in 5 states: Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. You'll see the blue dots there. We just announced an acquisition in Florida, First Community Bank. It's about a $10 billion bank, and it'll really strategically round out our Florida footprint. Post-acquisition, we're about $16 billion in Georgia. We're still a Georgia banking company. About 45% of our assets are in the state of Georgia. Florida, $13 billion, and that's about 35% of our footprint. And then you see Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee round out at, you know, almost 30% as well. The state of South Carolina was one national bank. It was called National Bank of South Carolina. It was a statewide bank. The rest of this infrastructure was put together by acquiring community banks throughout the Southeast. Just this year, we had 28 different banking divisions throughout the Southeast. All those dots there. So if you were in Atlanta, you banked with the Bank of North Georgia. If you're in Savannah, Sea Island Bank. Here in Columbus was Columbus Bank and Trust. As I said earlier, we started in Columbus. We're celebrating our 130th birthday in the next month, and so our roots are here in Columbus. In the 80s and 90s, we bought banks throughout Georgia and then expanded into these other states. January 1 of 2018, we moved to one core operating system and moved we collapsed the decentralized banking model and made it all one sign. So no matter where you go in the Southeast now, you'll see the Synovus flag. It's been a seamless process. We treasure our heritage at Columbus Bank and Trust and all these other banks, but if you were a customer in say Atlanta and you banked at Bank of North Georgia and you had a child come to CSU, for instance, you would have to, before this year, you would have had to open an account with Columbus Bank and Trust. You'd have to move money to that account in Atlanta. It would have to clear overnight, and then your child would get the money the next day. Now it's instant. You know, everything's on your phone. There are great synergies with advertising and the like. I'll show you all a branding commercial here in a minute that talks to Synovus and who we are from a branding standpoint. This data here is this Columbus market. My job as president of Columbus is to oversee the banking operation here in Columbus. These numbers come from the FDIC website. It includes Phoenix City as well. So the Columbus banking market is about $8.4 billion in deposits. You see Synovus really dominates the Columbus banking market. We have 67% of the deposits. It was 63% last year. That's a testament to a lot of things. I believe it's a testament to our culture and what we give back. And we were founded here. We have some iconic leaders like Jimmy Yancey and Jimmy Blanchard that really created the switch. First National Bank years ago was the dominant bank, and once they took leadership, that really changed. You see the typical SunTrust, Wells Fargo regions, southern states, BB&T, Phoenix Girard is a smaller bank over in Phoenix City. I want to show you this video that talks about our branding, talks about our culture, and it talks a little bit about kind of how we compete in the market. So let me tee that up. I was told I needed to come over here.
Is where we started, in the place where our neighbors, friends, and family taught us what really matters. That the worth of a relationship is greater than dollars can measure, and that good service won't soon be forgotten. The values that have shaped us from the beginning. Here is where we grew up. It's where we learned not just what having a community's support could do, but what we could do by supporting our community. A lesson we've never forgotten since we started in the late 1800s. Here is where we found our strength. In the relationships that have, for over 125 years, always kept us grounded in our community-first approach. Even as our more than 4,000 team members reach further than ever before to bring our customers specialty expertise and new technology. Here is where we made a promise that growing will never change who we are. This is where we charted our own way forward to carve out a different kind of banking. One that could be big and small, local and regional, rural and urban, personal and capable. And it's being both that sets us apart. We scale up and down. Something our competitors struggle to do. And the best part is that it's all going to happen here. Here's where we're from. Here made us who we are. Here is where we want to be. Here means something. Here is home. Synovus, the bank of here.
All right, let's see if we can. So, that video, to me, talks about how we're a little bit different than other banks, right? We have what we call a relationship banking model. It's a people first, it's a community first approach to banking. And so you think, well, that makes common sense. Why wouldn't every bank do that? Well, it's a very expensive model to operate. We have local leaders in every market that are challenged to be involved in all things for me, Columbus. They encourage me to be on the development authority, and what that means is I'm part of 5 or 6 people in the community that tries to attract industry and business to Columbus. I spend a lot of my time traveling to some of these companies to cheerlead and sell Columbus and tell them why they should move here, why they should hire CSU students, why they should pick Columbus to work. We just announced 600 jobs with a new call center out of Colorado that we had been working on for some time. They've just opened in Columbus. They'll hire 600 people. It was a blast for me to be a part, to meet new people they were from Colorado, and we need more of that in this town. And Synovus empowers me to be part of that leadership in Columbus to get involved in things like that. The video talks about that we want to be big and small, we want to be local and regional, and we want to scale up and down. To me, scaling up and down says that we have the balance sheet to bank. We can lend somebody $100 million. Willette and I have worked on relationships where we've lent families and companies up to $100 million. So we have that infrastructure to do that, but we also we want to scale down to where we have the local entrepreneurship, the local decision making, where I can be creative in Columbus and figure out how to win in this market. This is a small example, but one of these large banks that was on the screen that had smaller market share. I was coaching my son's baseball team at Peach Little League, and they were asking for the outfield signs, will Synovus buy a sign? And we have every year, and I said, of course. And I didn't have to go ask anybody if it was okay. I have a budget for those things. We were encouraged to give back. But the guy that was heading up the sales for the baseball fields was the president locally for one of these big banks. I won't dog them here, and I said, well, I don't see your bank out here. And he said, Heath, you will not believe, I can't get $150 to do an outfield sign. I can't get through the bureaucracy of that. So that's a small example, but that tells you that, this big bank out of whatever state they're from, they don't empower their team members enough to give $150 for an outfield sign. Again, small example, but I think it's how we're different. And again, it's more expensive to operate this way. We have local presidents, local people that are engaged in all things, and we don't think our competitors do a very good job of that. You'll see a couple ways we've been recognized for our culture. Fortune magazine named Synovus the #1 company to work for in America. This is a little bit dated, but it was while I was working there. Most recently, American Banker, which is a very large banking publication. It's the premier banking publication in the country. Voted Synovus #1 reputation for banks in the Southeast. So what does having a great reputation and being named as one of the best places to work? We think our culture that I've talked about attracts people, great entrepreneurial bankers that care about their community, that want a career. So we think we're able to hire kind of best-in-class people and empower them to kind of win in their markets. This is something I'm really proud of. Here Matters. This is 2017 numbers, but we gave over $910,000 by our team member and corporately to United Way. I told y'all we gave $6 million to CSU. We've given over 100, just this year, 101 scholarships for over $112,000 to team members of our own, to children of our own team members. We logged almost 29,000 volunteer hours supporting over 3,600 different community projects in the Southeast. Here locally in Columbus, we work with the school district, David Lewis, and one of the things that we're working on right now the last 2 years is they have some data that says if a child is behind in reading in the 3rd grade, that the stats are not good for that child going forward. There's just, they get behind, they don't feel good about themselves. The story can be written statistically over and over. We have tried at Synovus to attack that with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club. We spent over 500 hours reading to kids in the 2nd and 3rd grade to try to attack the reading levels. They just got their testing back after 2 years of us doing this, and the reading scores have increased substantially. Now we've got to go and tack kind of pre-K and lower, but it's a great way to kind of see how the community told us an issue. We're not the only company that did this. We were 500 hours. We were sending friends, customers, employees to go out and attack this issue, and it's something that we'll continue to do. Part of Columbus 2025, I don't know if you've heard anything about Columbus 2025. It's a long-term strategic planning idea and kind of goal setting for the city. And one of the things, the main thing they're trying to accomplish is to attack poverty in our community. And what better way to attack poverty than to get those reading levels up and get education up in many parts of our city. Okay, so I've told you about how we, our culture, how we win in our local markets. Our banking industry is changing in a big way, and the digital, the iPhone, the iPads, the way people bank is changing. I read an article this week that said 71% of millennials prefer to do all their banking on their phone. Raise your hand if you've been into a branch in the last 4 months.
Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah, I am shocked. I mean, wow. What do you go into a branch for? Is it to cash check still and do some of those things? Deposit. Well,
check the amount,
Yeah. Well, the day's coming where, and it's here already, where you can take a picture of your check. And so in the same article, it said that Citibank was spending $8 billion on technology this year. That J.P. Morgan Chase is spending $10.8 billion on tech just this year. And so, and their CEOs are saying we will not increase our expense levels in any way. So how do you spend $8 billion? These are big companies, but how do you spend $8 billion on tech? That's a very large percent and not increase your expense base. Well, Citibank came out and said we're going to decrease our branch network by 30% this year. So they're going digital and they're scaling back the number of branches. The branches that we build going forward will be much smaller. They'll be much sleeker. They'll be high technology. I know we're building out Atlanta in a big way, and some of our new Atlanta branches are again very small, iPads. It feels more like an Apple store and less like a bank. And so that's the future of what I call retail banking, which is, but people will always need a banker for their business, for their, home improvements, home loans, and from a lending standpoint, some of the small lending functions are starting to go digital. But so we're watching this in a big way. We don't have $8 billion at Synovus to spend on technology, right? So we're taking an approach, we call it fast follow. We're fast followers, so we're letting the cities and the JP Morgans invest, figure it out, and we're partnering with what's called fintech companies, financial technology companies. They're in the news everywhere. Some of the really big ones that you've heard of are Venmo, PayPal. I could go on forever talking through some of the fintech companies. But so we pay them a fee. They have an infrastructure of creativity, of venture capital, of strategic talent, of technology. They're much more capable of identifying the future in the digital world and finding solutions. And you customers, you people, the millennials are driving this digital space, and so we're learning from you. We're hiring people. Let me say, if you want to get a job in the banking industry, I looked before I left this morning. We have 37 IT jobs open right now that we can't fill. That's almost 40% of our open jobs, and that's through 5-state footprint. Almost 40% of our jobs are IT related. As part of the Development Authority and some other things we're working with, I've met with TSYS and Aflac. It's the same story, cybersecurity, IT, and so those jobs are very much in need, especially if you're willing to live in a Columbus. A lot of people want to live in Atlanta or New York or wherever, but in smaller markets, the IT, and so we're having to get creative as a city to figure out how to get those jobs filled, because we don't want Synovus and TSYS and Aflac and these large companies to set up shops in other cities and hire that talent there. So we've got to think differently on how we educate people. We've got to think differently how we get those jobs here to Columbus. All right, so this is where I hope you guys will ask us anything's on the table. The better, tougher questions. We hope that you will. I have some planted questions for Willette if you guys don't participate. But my hope, I've asked Willette, come on up. She's going to tell you a little bit about her career path and what she does, and then we're going to open it up for questions.
Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome. It's good to see all of you here today. When Heath asked me to do this, I couldn't say no because he did a panel for me not too long ago, but I'm really happy to be here. And I'll just give you a little bit about my background and how I got to where I am now, and then open it up for questions or allow Heath to ask his questions. But I can remember, it doesn't seem that long ago when I was sitting in the same position that you were. I took classes at CSU, but I actually graduated from Georgia, but I grew up here in Columbus. Went to Hardaway High School. I love Columbus. But ended up going to Georgia, graduating from there, and in my quest to look for a job, because I knew I had to work, my dad was a hard worker, he always instilled in us hard work, you have to work. I was excited to go look for a job and just kind of be on my own. And I remember Synovus, it was Synovus, not CB&T, that was recruiting at that time for a program, came to our school at just the general career fair, and I talked to the recruiter about it. I told her, I used to hear about it. I think my parents may bank with the company, and it just always had this good reputation in my mind. And I said, that seems like a good place to start. So I'll move home for just a little bit, and get get settled, and then I'm gonna go move to Atlanta or some big city in New York. That was my plan. I was all ready to go. So ended up getting hired for our management training program, which has now been rebranded. It's called our Accelerated Banker Program, and I'll tell you all a little bit about that. But ended up getting hired with that program. It was a training program intended to make commercial bankers. Does anybody in here know what a commercial banker is?
I want to guess, but I want to be wrong.
It's
like a
okay.
regional bank that lends out money.
So the bankers are the frontline team members, and they're the ones out there going out and looking for the commercial side, particularly businesses, to lend money to. Because businesses need money to grow, to expand. You gotta have money to make money. And so we have bankers out there that are intentionally looking for businesses that need that funding and support. And so that's what our bankers do. And our bankers are the ones that really drive the profitability of the bank. I mean, they are the bread and butter of our bank. They're just highly important and revenue driving members of our bank and community. So the program is intended to do that. So started out in the program, everything was going well, and then guess what? What happened in 2006 and 2007?
Recession.
Stock market.
Crash, the recession, the Great Recession as they call it, which I can't even believe it's being called that now. So the Great Recession happened, program dissolved, everyone who was in the program just had to find a job, and I ended up getting a job at CB&T with Heath, which I was very thankful for because it was just a tough time in banking generally. So I started, working on the banking side for a while, on the real estate banking side. Heath ended up going to private wealth, and I ended up following him to private wealth as well, and became a private wealth advisor. And then about 3 years ago, I ended up converting to the learning and development side, which may resonate more with you if I say training. So we do the training for all of our new hires, new employees who come into the bank, but we also manage the Accelerated Banker Program as well as our internship program. And so it's been a good career so far. I'm looking forward to just, hopefully ending my career at Synovus, not soon, but just later. Synovus is one of those companies where all those things that Heath was saying, it wasn't just because it sounded good, it's actually for real. I mean, it sounds like we're all drinking this Kool-Aid, but it really is a good place to work, meaning people care about their people. And frankly, when you have happy coworkers, when you have happy workers, people want to do work for you, and it's easier. So far it's been a really good career. I do just want to drop a little tidbit about the Accelerated Banker Program and the internship program that we do have. Most of those programs at banks, really, they stopped having them in the recession. I mean, people just didn't have time to develop people. Banks were in survival mode. So now you'll see a lot of banks now kind of reinvigorating these programs, these training programs. They're trying to get college graduates in and back interested in banking. It's a grand focus for us just because, like I said, our bankers are just really the bread and butter of our business. But we also do offer internships for not just commercial banking, but finance, marketing, and corporate communications as well. So that's a little bit about my background. I really love what I do now. I needed the background of banking, though, to be able to do what I do now successfully.
And Willette, she manages that group and does an amazing job and has got a great career ahead of her in the future. But questions? Anyone?
Yes, so, sorry, I thought that was somebody. So, you had that list of all the other banks in Columbus. So, is y'all's goal as a company to drive those to where they want to sell, or are you going to try to acquire them in the future?
The banks that you saw on that screen, most of them are much bigger than we are. We have dominant market share in Columbus. We want to grow in Columbus, but we want to do the same domination in Atlanta. Like in Atlanta, we may have 2% market share. In Nashville, we're very small. I mean, Nashville is a growing place. We need to, I won't say do a better job, but we need to, so when we're adding talent and assets and those things, we're putting dollars. We just opened a bank in Macon. So we're trying to, sustain's not the right word in Columbus. We're trying to grow and innovate and do a lot of neat things, but we're trying to replicate that in as many other markets as we can.
So basically, they're trying to come in and take people from your bank. So
Yes.
Because you dominate. Well, how would you say you did that? Like, Synovus started in Columbus?
It did, and it started in 1888, and it was Columbus Bank shares. As late as the 80s or 90s, we were second, third market share. It really, in my view, I'm partial, it changed with, and really just grew like crazy with the leadership of Jimmy Yancey and Jimmy Blanchard. They got very involved in the community. They were competitive people that, and they created a culture that empowered people to be just as competitive, to be able to make decisions, to love where they work. And it hadn't always been that way, but I'd say mid-80s, 1985, 1990 is when it really took off. And then they started buying banks all over Georgia and then the Southeast, created TSYS, which is an amazing story. We could talk an hour about the innovation of and how that happened, but it's just a really neat success story. That
I think because we started here in Columbus, and it's amazing how much market share we have, and it's still growing. We're essentially in protect mode too. Like, we want all our customers to stay happy, because the easiest way to get a customer from another bank is to get a dissatisfied customer. I mean, think about the times you've been ticked off at a bank or any other company. You're like ready to leave, you're ready to write a bad review. And so like here, we want people happy, we want our customers happy, so they'll stay with us. But then we're also looking for those not happy customers at the other banks, so we can move them over to Synovus.
So how do you attract talent? You know, obviously you're here promoting the company and things like that, but outside of CSU, how are you attracting talent from not just Columbus, but the Atlanta area, Florida, things like that?
So right now we have a group of primary schools that we are targeting. And so at our primary schools, that means that we have people that go there, they go speak at the school. CSU is one of them. We're at their career fairs, you know, we've got our banners up, and we really haven't done that in the sense that we did it this year because of our branding. It was so confusing for people to understand CB&T Synovus or Bank of North Georgia Synovus. So now that we're one brand, it's starting to resonate with people and in their heads. So we do go to really 5 larger schools in our footprint, 6 larger schools in our footprint. And those are our primary schools, and we're just trying to make sure that people out there understand our name, the deans on those schools, they understand who we are, and that we're looking for really, really good talent. I mean, we are in a hiring mode. We want to build up our bench strength with really good talent and people who want to work and grow and work at a company that really cares about its people. So, you know, I would recommend to you all, when you start looking for companies, look at the values of the company and see if it aligns with yours, okay? Because every company has values that they tout, and all of them are a little different, but look for those ones that have the values that match what you're really believing in, because that's a really good start. You still may not know what you want to do, but that's a good place for you to just start when you start investigating new companies. But in addition to the 6 schools that we recruit at, we do have team members who are maybe distinguished alumni at other schools. And so those people, they can go out there and they take our materials. If they have connections, they can kind of do their like self-motivated recruiting for us. And then, of course, we just started promoting our programs a little bit more online, because in the past, you couldn't find information, but now, if you were to Google search, you could find information about some of our programs. The other thing that I do want to mention is a initiative that's being led and driven at Synovus by actually 4 of our executives. It's our Inclusion and Diversity Initiative. And so I'm sure you all are very aware of what that means. Do people know what inclusion means?
Having everybody together, like including everybody.
That's a good
Without
way to look
leaving
at
out
it.
any race or religion.
Right.
Or
So-
like ethnic group.
So that is a way to think about it. A lot of people talk about diversity, and when you think of diversity, you're thinking about a lot of the things that you can see, right? But inclusion is making people feel like they belong. And all companies are really focusing on that now, because you can recruit as much talent, as good talent as you want, as diverse talent as you want, but if you can't make people feel like they belong, they're gonna leave. So we have something we consider a business imperative to make sure that our team members are reflective of the communities that we serve. You know, we're on campuses at, HBCUs, just to make sure that we're recruiting good talent, all types of talent, but that the people who come in are also feeling, the goodness that we feel, and they want to stay. And just speaking about how small a world it is, I just learned there's 20 team members at Synovus that are on our Inclusion and Diversity Committee. I'm one of them, and I just learned that John's one of them too, who I just met today. And I know Kate very well, so it's just such a small world in Columbus. But that's one reason that I ended up staying and loving Columbus, because you can be very successful in Columbus because of that.
What I was going to say too, so 5 years ago, the array of job titles, they change all the time. So we are actually in the process of looking for I guess basically a chief diversity officer, which is a newer. CSU.
Oh, okay.
Well, I know that's somewhat of a newer.
Yeah, I mean, you're
position just
seeing
in
companies hire them
industry.
all over the place. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, diversity is more than just, what you can see, but the fact is that companies that do well from a diverse standpoint, they recognize people diverse in the way that they look, their backgrounds, their experiences, they perform 20% better than companies that don't. So, I mean, it's absolutely necessary.
So if you were looking for, like, if you're interested in banking, what would your path be to getting a career in banking? What would you?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've got many entry-level jobs. I mean, people who are very high up now, I believe even our CEO was working in the mailroom. I mean, there's entry-level jobs wherever you go. You could be a teller. I will tell you that patience can be a virtue, but while you're waiting for that right job to come along, to do what you're doing and do it well. Just do what you're doing, do it positively, and do it well, because the right thing will eventually come along. Another way is to join one of our training programs, or start in an internship, and then apply for a training program the next following year. So if you're a junior, the great thing for you to do is apply for an internship, and then you can use that as almost like a long interview for even yourself and ourselves. And most banks have these. To figure out if that's something that you want to do long term.
It's the summer after your junior year. It's a paid internship, and they take you around and show you different parts of the bank, put you to work a little bit, and then if you like us and we like you, then we would offer you a job at the end of the internship.
You have to major in finance?
You have to major in business.
So it doesn't have to necessarily.
Doesn't have to be accounting or finance.
But we do like to see that you've had 2 accounting courses.
Question. We're talking about diversity. As part of business strategy, don't you think diversity goes with culture?
Say that again?
Don't you think diversity goes with business culture? because if the culture doesn't match the diversity issue, you're going to end up with fight.
And that's why when you read about companies and when you start looking on company websites now, you'll see there's almost a section about diversity and inclusion. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion at Synovus, we flip it and we call it inclusion and diversity. It's called our I&D initiative because exactly what you said, that's almost more important than diversity. And that's for everybody across the board, for them to feel included and for them to feel welcome. One thing that I heard about, to explain it just more in visual terms, is diversity is being invited to a party, but inclusion is being invited to dance. So it's just that feeling of belongingness.
So the application process is online, and that doesn't give us, the students, the chance to talk and give you an example of who we are. All you see is what we type. And I was wondering what we could do to stand out in order to get a job or an internship over another person, because we don't have that chance to show you who we really are.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. Willette and I we've done a lot of these panels. We did it with some Auburn MBA students here recently. We talk about the do's and the don'ts. And look, the internet and these websites have given you guys a cheat sheet to how to get behind the curtain, right? I'm the president of a bank. If one of you guys wrote me a handwritten letter and told me that you were interested to come, that's different, right? I mean, your generation, you don't write handwritten, I'm stereotyping, but if I interview someone and they go off and then I get a handwritten note that says, thank you for the time, that was great, I'm really interested, I've researched your company, that matters, right? An email's great, and if that's all you can do, then send an email. But you know, some of the do's and don'ts, I mean, just take that extra. If you apply somewhere, get online, figure out some people in that, and send them an email or write them a note saying, I have applied for this, I'm very interested, this is who I am. It matters, it's just a step.
What exactly are you looking for in a candidate?
So
What we're looking for in a candidate? We'll both answer, but go ahead.
So kind of what your question that you asked too, there's a few things that I'll say that I'll look for on paper, and then after or during the interview, there's some other things that I'm looking for in hiring. So on paper, I mean, obviously you're going to stand out if you have a high GPA. However, I would rather have someone with a lower GPA that can carry a meaningful conversation and build rapport with me very well. Because as a banker, you have to get people to trust you. You have to get people to want to talk to you. And if someone can do that, I will take a 3.0 over a 4.0 any day. So I hope I didn't say the wrong thing.
That's perfect. That's what I talk about.
But on paper,
yeah, go ahead.
But on paper, you know, sometimes I feel like there are a lot of different things that can make you stand out. I mean, I think extracurriculars are important, you know. I also like to see people with work experience. I mean, you know, sometimes people get out and they're ready to graduate and they haven't worked at all. Like, I like to see a little work experience of some type or some form. I don't care if it's serving at a restaurant or a fast food company, but something just to show me that you've had a little work ethic, and the first time that you're going to have a job is not going to necessarily be here. That doesn't mean we don't take those, because we do, especially if they're just, you know, very, you know, able to carry on a really good conversation. And I think, you know, people who participate in team activities are great.
I just mentioned this today in class. So volunteer activities, they were talking about all the service activities that go on at Synovus. So imagine if you did a volunteer activity, not only is it a good activity in and of itself, but perhaps you come across from someone at Synovus and then they see you in action. I mean, that's
volunteer activities, leadership in a volunteer activity or leadership in anything That's something else that we'll be looking for. And the last thing I do want to say that we look for, especially after or when people come to an interview, if we get to spend a lot of time with them, is good emotional intelligence. Does anybody here know what that means? What's that mean?
You can read people.
That's right. What's that?
General maturity.
It's general maturity. You can read people. You can understand people's emotions, and you can understand your own, and you know how to manage through that. So that means that you ask questions, you're curious about other people, you ask questions about them. Just because you're generally curious and you want to know, you don't have an agenda. And that leads to a level of empathy about people. I mean, he has very, very high emotional intelligence. And if you look at leaders of companies, they tend to, I believe the statistic is 70% of leaders of companies have high emotional intelligence rather than high IQ. I'm not talking about you. And
I'm okay with that.
90% of high performers, so think about salespeople who are doing really well, they have high emotional intelligence. So look that up when you get a chance, because that's something that we're finding to be a differentiator amongst the people that we interview.
And one thing I'll say to that is you have to be authentic. You have to be who you are, right? You can sense it very quickly when someone's trying to be something they're not. You have to be self-aware enough and authentic enough to say, this is who I am, and pursue something that will create passion for you. It's a long life. If you go into a job without passion, it's not a great situation.
I saw you've been raising your hand.
So I know, like you guys said, a lot of banks are moving into a large part of their company being technology based. So how, as a company, are you guys planning, like, when you recruit these people out of college, can they have the idea that they can grow and then stay with the company for a long period of time? Or as Synovus grows, are you guys planning on moving in that direction to where, you go in a bank and there may be only 2 people working there, and it's not many jobs that are going to be open for people who may out of college have started what you got?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be jobs. They're just trending a little bit more toward the technology, but we still need people to make face-to-face contact. I would say maybe in the retail space, so when you think about branches, that may be slimming down a bit, but you're still going to, people who want to get money from you, especially if it's a high dollar amount, they're going to want to talk to people. If I'm going to ask you for $1 million, $100,000, they're going to want to talk to somebody. So that piece of our business hasn't changed from a people standpoint. Now the branch banking is changing the way that looks and feels, and that's in line with what's going on in the industry. But there is places for you to grow. Most people at Synovus is special in the sense that people get there and they stay. And if people leave, not a lot of times, but they come back too, because the culture that they were experiencing at Synovus isn't really at the other place that they went to.
One more question? Noah.
Yeah, how's your social media presence going, or do you have one?
We do have an @Synovus. We have a Twitter handle. We're on LinkedIn. It is increasing by the day. We've got people hired to handle social media now. Those are jobs that were not there.
We have a new app, One Synovus.
So it's getting higher and higher. You're starting to see like more of these videos that like he's shown being trending on Facebook. Before we even go recruit at a school, I mean, we are blasting on Facebook from a certain mile radius about Synovus, so it starts to get in people's minds about, oh, I've seen Synovus before. So it's literally increasing by the day.
Unbelievable. I'll turn it over to Dean Hadley. One second. For my class, if Frederick, Cody, Tony, or Juana here, please see me before you leave. I've been replaced by someone more competent.
And let me say, Dr. Hadley is on our board at the bank. Rick Alexander in the audience is. I see Jimmy Yancey's behind those doors back there, and he's one of those iconic leaders that I was talking about. He has a passion for CB&T and Synovus, and really was one of the people that built it to what it is today, as I told you. So He's right behind those glass windows.
Well, I just wanted to come up and say thank you. I was going to recognize Rick Alexander and Jimmy Yancey and thank them both for being here. Not only are they involved at CB&T with Rick being, well, Synovus, with Rick being on the board, Mr. Yancey, a former chair of the board, but they're also involved in the Turner College. They both serve on the Business Advisory Council of the Turner College, both having served as chair, and Rick Alexander is the current chair of the Business Advisory Council. And they give back to the community, and they've certainly given to this college. They give their not only resources, but they certainly give a lot of time. I want to say thank you to you, Heath, and to Willette. Thank you both for coming. It means so much. The reason that we have this series is because we think that it is very, very important to have business leaders, successful business leaders, come and talk to our students. I said recently when on the occasion of this building being named for Synovus, taking on the name of the Synovus Center for Commerce and Technology, that Synovus has been just an outstanding partner. And just having bankers come to speak to our classes, I have seen a number of students get jobs at Synovus from contacts that they've made at events like this. And I have, over the years, recommended a countless number of students to Synovus, and many, many of them have gotten jobs. In fact, I sit sometimes and I look and see that there are people who got jobs 20 years ago, and 20 years later, they're still at Synovus, and they were students of mine. There's no better partner than the partnership that we have with Synovus. So I want to say thank you to you, thank you to Willette. We appreciate it. This is a token of our appreciation. It is something that, open it up, let's just see what it is. To remind you of your visit here,
fantastic.
And especially since we're one of your alma maters.
Yes.
And well, we hope you use this to sign a lot of employment agreements and loans. All right?
Thank you.